Hello, my name is Pierre van der Westhuizen, Executive and Artistic Director of the Gilmore. It gives me great pleasure to share with you all the results of our 2022 Gilmore Young Artist Awards. After a months-long process wherein we gathered nominations from a field of professionals across the US and an anonymous artistic advisory committee assessed performances in a variety of settings, I have the great honor of announcing the recipients of these awards. They are Janice Carissa, currently a student at the Curtis Institute of Music and originally from Indonesia, and Clayton Stephenson from Brooklyn, New York, and currently enrolled in a joint program at Harvard University and the New England Conservatory of Music. Both of these outstanding young musicians will receive a total of $25,000 each. $15,000 will go towards professional development and $10,000 towards the commissioning of a new work for piano. In addition, each pianist will be performing solo recitals and in concerto settings at the 2022 Gilmore Piano Festival and beyond. Please join me in congratulating Janice and Clayton. We really can't wait to welcome you to Kalamazoo, and we are grateful for the opportunity to provide this kind of inspiration and encouragement to young artists. And now, we are very fortunate to have 2002 Gilmore Young Artist, Jonathan Biss, who will join us in a conversation with Janice and Clayton to discuss this award and shed some light on its impact. Thanks so much and enjoy the conversation.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Biss. I was a recipient of the Gilmore Young Artist Award back in the Mesozoic era, otherwise known as 2002. And I'm really delighted to be talking to the two brand new winners of the 2022 Gilmore Young Artist Award, even though it's not yet quite 2022, Janice Carissa and Clayton Stephenson. So first of all, congratulations to you both.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor, and this has been a culmination of everything I've worked for. This is just such an amazing opportunity. So I want to thank you guys.
Well, Janice, you and I have known each other for a long time. Clayton, we haven't met, but we're actually going to be working together really shortly. So this is kind of fortuitous. But even though Janice, I will know some of what I'm about to ask you about. Just for people who are watching, I would, just love to hear a little bit about how you both arrived at this point. And I think mostly what drew you to music in the first place, and what has your geographical and I would say sort of artistic path looked like up till this point.
So I guess a little background is that I grew up in a musical household. My brother was a pianist. My mom is a self-taught pianist, and growing up as a kid who was just like so full of wonder and curiosity, when you see a piano, your natural instinct is to climb it, even though you're too short for it. And then you just like play every single thing. It's like, what is this black and white keys? Why is it making so many sounds? So then I was pretty much like plonking away, annoying my mom. But then one day, I think I was just so captivated by all of these film music, Fantasia 2000. My childhood, and I was like, Mama, I want to learn how to play this, and she's like, oh, you want to learn? And then that was kind of like the early introduction into this world. And then next thing I know, when I turned 5, I started like taking lessons with my mom, and she introduced me to like scales, sight reading, learning smaller pieces. And the next thing I know, in Indonesia, everyone always take these APRSM examinations where you have to play like pieces, scales, and oral solfege and things like that. And I was doing that for about 8 years. And then in 2013, I decided to take the audition to Curtis and to live in Philadelphia, because that was always like a long time dream of mine. And then I've been in Philadelphia to study at Curtis for the past 8 years now. And that's actually how I met my mentor here, Jonathan Biss, who I look up to very, very much. And it's been such a joy and full of inspiration to work with and just make music and remember every day why I'm doing this in the very first place. So.
Well, that's one of the qualities that I've always felt in your playing and your presence, that you're so in contact with the joy of making music, which is, it should be a given, but it's a very easy thing to lose sight of, I think, given the strain of the life and the stress of wanting to play as well as possible, and all of the internal and external pressures. I had a question I was thinking of when you were talking, and because obviously my parents are musicians. I come from a really musical family, but they're not pianists, and they were never, even though they've been really, really important in my life, not just as a person, but as a musician. They were absolutely never my teachers. And I'm curious to know what the experience of having a parent also be a teacher was like, whether it was a challenge, whether it made it, I mean, of course, you don't have any basis of comparison, but do you think was it easier? Was it more difficult? Was it simply different from having someone outside the family teach you?
I think growing up with a piano teacher who is my mom, interestingly enough, she actually gave me a lot of freedom in what I want to do and how I want to approach music. And I think what was so important to her was that I'm doing this because I'm enjoying it. Because she says that in the end in life, you can have all of these amazing career and all of these like full calendar, and you can be very busy, you can be top of the league, but if you're not happy, what's the point of that? So she's always constantly reminding me to just do it because I enjoy that. And yeah, she did like assign a couple like sight reading skills and like pieces that I need to learn, but she always leave it open ended, which I think is so great because what is so awesome about being a pianist is that the repertoire is so huge. We
Yeah.
can do chamber music, we can do solo, we can do concertos, we can do so many things. And I think my mom wants to make sure that my doors are always open to all of the possibilities and that it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
there was
one.
definitely a lot of creativity freedom. I think that's it. Yeah.
I think there's probably nothing more important when you're just starting to develop your
Yeah.
relationship with the instrument, with music. I mean, it always surprises me that I feel like I do meet many people who are professional musicians who do not seem to be very happy doing what they're doing. And it's first of all surprising just because it is as hard as it is, it's an incredible privilege to get to play this music. But beyond that, it's so hard. It strikes me as odd that someone would choose it if they didn't feel a deep abiding love for it. I mean,
Right.
so it's wonderful that you had that kind of instilled in you from the very beginning. Yeah. Clayton, how about you?
Even though I am a pianist, I think first and foremost I am a music appreciator. I've always just loved listening to music, any type of music, not even classical music. When there's something, some harmonic change, something special that makes me just turn my head and go, what is that? And I think that's kind of really what drew me to the piano at the beginning. I didn't grow up in a family with any music players, music teachers in the family. So I was incredibly new to everything. But I would say that I started off in a single parent household with not that many resources, which is a little bit weird starting for classical music because classical music generally requires a lot of money in the piano lessons and getting the instrument itself. And so I actually never owned a piano, never bought a piano up until we found one. Actually, it was the summer, and this elementary school, and they were throwing away one of their really old upright pianos in the back of a dumpster. And so me and my mom found it. We were like, why don't we just take this home and use this as our piano? And that's what I did. And just starting from the beginning, I think it's been love all the way. I really have to thank my first piano teacher, Ms. Zoya. She didn't really teach me anything about technique or phrasing or anything of that, but she really let me enjoy the music. She let me play what I liked to play, and she really taught me that music is about having fun. It's not about practicing scales. It's not about any of that. And I think I kind of brought that into everything else I kind of touched afterwards. From
Yeah.
her, I transitioned into the Juilliard MAP program, which is a program for the 5 borough area for underprivileged kids in the community, and I was accepted. And having just such a different atmospheric change, just going to Juilliard, being able to sit in the concert halls and see all these kids who are, a couple years older than me in the pre-college program, who are playing, hour-long recitals, playing so many different types of repertoire that I've never heard of. It really piqued my interest. And so I was there, every Saturday, just listening and, trying to absorb as much as I could. And, at that point in time, this was still like a community program. So it was kind of detached from the real, Juilliard Pre-College and Juilliard College. And my dream was to get into Juilliard Pre-College. I wanted to be, the first one in that program to make that huge jump.
Yeah.
And my teacher at that time, Miss Nam, she was also so supportive of me. She gave me like 3 hour long lessons, all at no extra cost. And she really, focused with me. I remember there was this one, the second movement of a Haydn sonata in D major, Hoboken 32. And there was just this one measure. And I think we went over that one measure, I think for 2 hours, just going over the singular phrasing of that one measure. And that still just strikes me as, being so dedicated that, you're willing to go that far with a student. And so after that, I got into Juilliard Free College. The first time I tried, I didn't make it. I auditioned and I got eliminated. I didn't even go to the in-person round. And so the second time I really tried and, really practiced. I took off school and I finally got into the Juilliard Free College program, which was kind of my dream. And even then, I was only 10 years old. So I was kind of starting this whole different journey now with Juilliard. Even like from this beginning, though, I think that one of the things that was really apparent for me was the amount of community programs, which really helped me and brought me up to where I am right now. I just mentioned like the Juilliard MAT program, but there were also several more, like the Boys Club of New York, for instance, in the Bronx. I would often go there, not just for music, but also just for, for academic purposes. That was also the place where I met my first jazz teacher, which was, a whole different experience of playing jazz and then being introduced into this another, vast amount of repertoire, which, I still am very interested in doing jazz and doing cross genre work. The Boys Club of New York, the Long Long Foundation. Oh my God, I can go on for hours and hours about the Long Long Foundation. I think we were, it was when I was 12 years old, we were selected for this first inaugural junior music camp in Munich. And it was, I think, about 20 kids from all around the world, around, 12, 13, 14 years old. And nobody could speak, some people couldn't speak English. And so we had no way of communicating with each other. And so for the first, couple of days, everybody was very awkward. And when we were introduced to the pianos, all of a sudden we were able to hear each other play, pieces that we were familiar with. Oh, I played this too. Let me tag along and play with you. So all of a sudden, all the cultural boundaries, all the things that we weren't able to understand with each other before, now we were able to have full conversations, without speaking each other's language. And that really made me understand that music is like a universal language. And, music is meant for sharing. It's for, without an audience member, there's really no point in me playing music or playing piano. There has to be another person engaged in this conversation with me. And I think that really struck me. Yes, I've talked about why it's fun and why I enjoy playing it, but there's also a kind of aspect that it's a responsibility to give back to all these community programs which have supported me, which have helped me grow throughout all this time. And so, I know that I've been reading with Gilmore's Mission, and I know they have a similar program called the Piano Labs where they're installing, pianos in public schools across. And I think that's amazing because one of the joys that I've kind of discovered while playing is teaching students and teaching other young kids the joy of listening to music and the joy of playing music. And it's not just, me imparting stuff to them. They're also inspiring me because they're looking at music through new ways, which I've never seen before. And so this is just, a process of giving back, but also learning more from the experience.
I mean, there are lots of things. I'm just taking it all in about the story you told that are really beautiful. But I think the thing that I love the most is how obvious it is that you chose music. It was not. There were so many other paths of less resistance, and it's something that I think so many of us who grew up surrounded by it. It takes longer for us to sort of realize. This is something that I love. It's mine. But I think you will never have any doubt about your devotion or your sense of purpose to it because you chose it from the very beginning. And I think that's in a certain way an incredible. I don't think advantage is the right word, just an incredible gift to have, as you go through your life with it and you make your choices about what you want to do with music. And it sounds like you already have a lot of very interesting ideas about that.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you bring that up because, this past year with the pandemic, with everything, being thrown into chaos, I know me and a lot of my friends were actually starting to doubt whether, music was the correct career path to go on. Will music survive after the pandemic? And I kind of focused full-heartedly on my academic classes at Harvard. I didn't, I also took, some fun classes, experimental, like jazz and composition, which I also went into. But it really made me realize while working on economics that, this is not the life cut out for me. I rather, be in a practice room practicing for 12 hours a day, like just discovering new techniques, new ways to play certain passages. I think that's just what I needed because, even the days in the pandemic, I basically didn't have a place to practice. Harvard wouldn't allow any common spaces to open. So for 8 months, I basically didn't have a piano and didn't practice. And even those days, when I didn't have any sort of, classical music connection, I was still listening to music every day. And it kind of really reaffirmed to me that music is something, even if I do not make it, it's something that will be a part of my life, for as long as I live.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That actually kind of segues to what I wanted to talk about very much with both of you. I'll go back to Janice now. I mean, it may be a little early to answer this question because we're still kind of in it, but how do you feel that the pandemic has changed your relationship to music and or your feelings about what you want to do as a musician with your life?
I think it definitely centers around the fact that music is meant to be shared, which is something that Clayton brought up in the time he shared his story and his upbringing. And I think being deprived of that connection to be able to play with others. And for others, you realize that you can't do this alone and that music and magic is only alive when you're sharing it with others. So I think going out from the pandemic and being able to spend the summer just with friends again that I haven't seen in years and being able to make music again and remember just the sheer joy that being in this environment can give you made me realize that, of course, I took a lot of things for granted. Just being able to perform and go to school and even play in piano seminars, or even just being able to text a colleague and be like, hey, like I've been working on this. Do you think you can stop by and maybe we can like explore it together and talk about this? Just that discussion and coming together with others. Suddenly I realized that this is something that I can't do alone. And it's only made me appreciate what I'm doing right now even more. So
I'm thinking back to when I was a GYA recipient, which is 20 years ago, which is both a long time and no time at all. In depending on the lens through which you're looking at it. But I do think the music world was enormously different in some pretty fundamental ways, and there were not so many paths. I think there were pretty kind of deeply ingrained ideas about what a career, not a word I like, but there's no better one, what a life in music looked like, how it worked. And, I kind of felt like, for better and worse, the road ahead was kind of clear, and I had to just figure out how to navigate it. And I think that for your generation, this was true even 3 years ago. There are more different ways. And I think now, given that it's just completely inevitable that the music world will continue to change a lot because of COVID, there's even more flexibility. And I'm wondering what that has you thinking, like as you've won this award, you've been given this honor, you're at the beginnings of your lives with music. I'm just curious to know what ultimately you want to do with it, and you don't have to answer specifically, but I'm really interested to hear from both of you, honestly.
I think this pandemic has really made me understand that there are so many more extra paths that I didn't realize before. I think one thing right now is that we're living in a digital age, and the pandemic brought a lot of stuff to be in-home stuff that's online. Now meetings that you used to have to travel for, now you just stay in your office or your home, and it's completed like that. And a lot of this, although it's gonna return to normal, some of it won't. And so I think having digital music sharing is also very important now. because of, how many social media apps are there, and even, not even just playing and sharing your music that way, but also interacting with it. I think one of the things is like all these amazing classical composers that we played, you can see how they're constantly innovating. And now, with now that we have the option to record sound and compose using recorded sound, I think it's amazing that we can kind of go into a new type of genre where we're kind of trying to see how far we can push classical music with combining it with digitization effects, with all this type of stuff. I think for me though, my goals is to be somebody who kind of lives in this in-betweenness. I would love to be somebody who kind of presents both jazz and classical music together. That's kind of what I love to do, what I love to hear, what I love to play. But also somebody who's really committed to giving back and to really re-educating and teaching the general population how great this gift of classical music is, because a lot of the times, the general population don't know anything that we're doing, the pieces that we're playing, but it's just because they simply haven't been introduced to this amazing music. And, a lot of my friends, once I show them, the playlist of the pieces that I love, they love them too, and they start listening to more classical music. So I think as a young artist, I think now especially, our job isn't really just to be performers anymore. It's also to be advocates for classical music and to keep this tradition alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the center of what I want to get out of this opportunity is to be able to give back to the community and being able to like share how like this joy that I'm feeling inside me, and being able to like show them this is why I'm doing this. And I think by making music just much more accessible, we're actually allowing ourselves to broaden the way we are trying to express our creativity as a musician and as an artist. Because I think what is so incredible is it's exactly like what Clayton was saying, is that now everything is moving to the digital platform, the virtual space, and now you're seeing so many wonderful classical musicians, somebody who is like in the principals and in this big symphonies, big orchestras, just creating all of these digital contents that are just drawing so much social media mass. And now it's like kids all over the world, instead of the parents asking them to learn an instrument, it's probably now it's more like the kids wanting to ask mom and dad, can I get a piano? I would like to learn how to play the clarinet or cello, and anything like that. And it's kind of nice to see that 180 turn. And of course, it all happened like in the most uncomfortable time in the history, where a lot was being taken away from us. But I think there's something beautiful in the way society is rebuilding itself, and what it engages like for artists around the world to just think more innovatively and creating this environment that can be welcoming to everyone. But you're definitely giving back to the community, being more creative, and see where that takes us. Because there's something fun about walking into like the unknown with an open mind. So, yeah.
It's gonna be very exciting watching people like the two of you sort of figure this out over the next.
I think it'll be really, really fun. I've known Clayton for 7 years now, and he's absolutely right. He's always looking for new ways to have fun on the piano. And I have seen him playing from the most amazing, like, classical pieces, romantic to jazz to contemporary. I mean, his repertoire is huge, and I think what better representation for this, bringing the old and the new, than this person here who is just clearly so passionate about what he's doing with music. So
No, you need to see Janice when she's at the piano. She's something else. She just turns into a completely different person. I mean, we're gonna have some joint concerts together, so I'm sure we're gonna think of something really fun to bring for the audience and for you guys. Yeah, for sure.
So I was going to ask you that. So what are you've never been to the Gilmore Festival, obviously, before. I won't tell you my story of my first Gilmore Festival because I still have mild PTSD from it, because there was a travel mishap, and I ended up, the only reason I made it to the concert on my recital on time was because they hired a private plane for me. After sort of 36 hours of trying to get from New York to Kalamazoo in the midst of a hurricane. It was a.
Oh my! And then you have to perform.
I did. Oh, I mean, how, I don't, care to remember, but I did play. But I'm interested to know what you're planning on playing, if you know yet at the festival, both of you, and what you're looking forward to when you go there.
This has been kind of an idea that I've wanted to do for a long time now. I first kind of submitted a similar idea to like a person in Germany for a concert, and they were like, no, 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 this is too wild. We need something more conservative. But now as a GYA, I think maybe it's time to finally, do what I want. I'm actually going to do a combination of jazz and classical pieces. So the first half of the concert will be entirely classical, and the second half of the concert will be entirely jazz pieces.
Wow.
And so yeah, we'll be playing a lot of fun pieces. One of my favorite kind of contemporary jazz pianists is Hiromi Yuhara, who's a Japanese jazz pianist, and she's wild on the piano. And so I'm going to be playing a couple of her pieces transcribed. Also, over this pandemic, I was also transcribing a lot of jazz performances and jazz solos, so I might play some of those as well. For the classical, I'm going to be playing Prokofiev's Seventh Sonata. I'll be playing Godowski's Strauss Fledermaus, which is a really fun piece with a lot of beautiful lines that are interwoven, which is really interesting. And yeah, probably some like Tom and Jerry-esque stuff. Mozart's Ronda alla Turca, probably I'm bringing out all the famous stuff right now. I'm just there to have a good time and play, and I hope the audience has a good time listening to me as well. For our joint stuff, I would love if we played some like Khachaturian dance, or I know on Anderson and Rowe we were talking about like digitization and like innovating into the next age, and I think Anderson and Rowe is a duo who does that really well, like looking at their music videos online, how they're incorporating their, transcriptions of pieces with the video and the sound and the colors and everything. And, maybe we can do something similar for our joint festival. We'll see.
I think that'd be really fun. Would you be up to transcribing maybe a piece and turn it into like
for sure.
with two pianos?
Oh yeah, that would be so lit. Yeah.
That's gonna be really, really fun.
Yeah, I think one of the things I see like in a lot of older pianists is how they were kind of having a discussion or in conversation with the music that they were playing as well, like Pletnev, like doing the Nutcracker Street for the Tchaikovsky competition, which he made himself, which is just mind blowing to me. But that's stuff that people did back then, Sifra, like Horowitz, all of that. So I think it would be cool to kind of bring that tradition back.
I'm really excited. Wow, we have a lot of fun things brewing in the cauldron right now. It's all
what do you have planned to play, Janice?
Oh, definitely something along the lines of my childhood fantasy. Like I grew up listening to the Blue Danube Effler transcription quite a lot, and I learned it when I was around 8 or 10 years old, and I'm hoping to bring it back and maybe open the program with that. And I kind of want the concert to culminate like the beginning until like where I am right now with life. I think a piece that probably means a lot to me up to this day was the Carl Vine Piano Sonata No. 2, because my mom was actually in the premiere and she was pregnant with me when that came out, and when I auditioned to Curtis, that was the piece that I chose to play. So I think it'll be fun to pick up like a paper from like the old notebook, my childhood diary, and bring it to the present and being able to return to that and see how everything that we've all gone through in life kind of influenced the way I hear and see and play the piece. It's always fun to revisit, but of course I would also like to combine something with the new. Like I've really been enjoying, same as you, as the late Prokofiev War Sonatas. I'm currently learning the No. 8, and I'm hoping to bring that to Gilmore. And of course, we all need a little theme and variation joy, because I think there's nothing as satisfying as watching one theme, one motive, and grow into like have this journey. So I think I would like to do some Mozart sonata. And one of my favorite is the Dernitz, which is the K281, and that's a piece that is very personal to me. So some Mozart, some Prokofiev, some Blue Danube, and I guess we'll find out what the rest are going to be. And of course, an Indonesian composer who was a longtime mentor of mine. He was actually the person that brought me, told me to just take a leap of faith and try to do things international. He was the one that was giving me opportunities to participate in like festivals, masterclasses, and all of this concert. His name is Jazz Suprana, and he writes a lot of amazing Indonesian pieces inspired by the gamelan and the Balinese dances. And I think if I could give back, it would definitely be to him, because I don't have today unless I. Mm-hmm. He gave me all of his generosity and help, like when I was growing up, all the way until I came to Curtis. So yeah, being able to go home and give back to the community.
I think that's a beautiful note on which to stop. I just want to ask you one more question before going. So, what was the one thing beyond, just the simple act of playing the piano or playing the piano with others that you missed most during the pandemic, and that like brought you the most kind of just pure joy when you had it back?
For me, this is a little bit weird. I guess this is kind of ties into the piano, but it's been relearning how to play the piano. I think after 8 months, I was really rusty, shell of my old self, I would say. But it actually gave me a really humble opportunity to kind of look at the things I was taking for granted before, the things I was just, mindlessly practicing, with the metronome. But, now I have to take it seriously because now I realize that all those things that I was doing in the past actually leads to bad practices and bad performances down the road. So now it's kind of like unearthing all of these these past mistakes that I've kind of buried and kind of dealing with them. I think also for me is just being able to connect with friends again. I think having people to, you know, practicing is such a lonely activity. I mean, even though you are, kind of in conversation with the composer and what he wrote, there's definitely something different about being able to kind of converse with your friends. I think you learn a lot from your friends. A lot of my music choices, a lot of amazing music that I would have never known of come from my friends. So being able to talk with these people, to explore again, to look into the lives of others and see
Yeah.
what their hobbies are and what their interests and what their you know dreams and aspirations are. It's really kind of brings things into perspective and also kind of inspires me to
Yeah,
keep working.
I can certainly
They're
relate to
working,
that.
I have to keep
Janice?
grinding as well.
Definitely along the lines of reevaluation, because when you have all that time in the world to just sit on the piano and go through as many repertoire as you'd like and just reading through pieces. I love readings, I love sight reading parties, and I think one of the things that I realized I had missed the most was probably all of the spontaneous sight reading parties that I get to do this summer. And that was really, really fun because 1 hour we could be going through like Hindemith clarinet quartet, and then the next hour we'll be doing something like Brahms C minor piano trio, or like we would also be just reading Haydn piano trios and then doing sonatas and just like all of these amazing things that I felt like. I remember when I first arrived to Marlborough this summer, the first thing that I did with my friends there, we just went to Gilmore Studio. We realized that we were the first ones to actually rehearse there, and
That
we just
building,
went
yeah.
through the Fauré piano quartets and the Mozart piano quartets, and that was like, wow, this is exactly the thing that I have missed and what I haven't been able to do throughout the pandemic because I live with no other musician other than my brother who no longer plays the piano, and there was no strings, no winds, no brass, nothing. So being able to return to that, I was like, man, I really took this for granted when I was in school for the last 7 years, when literally everyone had instruments on their backs and just very within reach, and that still I didn't do that. So that certainly puts a lot of things into perspective.
That again, I so appreciate, and I had so much the same experience of. I think there was a period of 6 months at the beginning where literally didn't hear anyone else's sound other than my own. And the first time I played with someone again, I almost cried. Yeah, it's just so unbelievably. It's like your ears reopen when they're exposed to impulse to outside impulses like that. Um, it's wonderful talking to both of you because even though you strike me as very different people in many ways, the absolute love and devotion to music just emanates from you both, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And again, it makes me feel very optimistic for the future of music and very excited to see what wonderful directions you're both going to go in. So I'm so glad that the Gilmore has given you this platform, and I again want to just offer my genuine and giant congratulations to you both. And yeah, looking forward to hearing much more of you and to watching what you do in the short and the medium and the long terms.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. It means a lot that you put aside the time and also to just see a longtime mentor figure to be here and just be able to share your experiences with the foundation, which is clearly has been so supportive of the young artists and just the new generations of music makers, and just being able to see this thread of traditions being passed. I think that's really, really meaningful. So thank you. And I'm really, really excited to work with Clayton and to finally being able to explore a creative side of like doing four hands or solo or anything. Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much, and hope to see you again soon. And again, the most important word, congratulations.